here's the interesting truth, right? The internet is propped up on advertising. And the incentivization of companies leaning towards privacy, Facebook doesn't want this. Apple made a decision. Google's making one like kind next year that is to the sake of consumer privacy. What is going to happen, I think, is a lot of the old stuff in advertising will become new again, meaning Meta has to, at some point, start creating relief in CPMs.
Had an amazing conversation today with Evan Padgett. 20 years experience in e-commerce and advertising. Crazy wealth of knowledge. This guy was wonderful to talk to. We had an extensive conversation about the history of advertising, how subscription services started, began, developed, and where they're heading in the future. And he has a wonderful and interesting backstory, which I hope you enjoy. So yeah, welcome, Evan. Thanks so much for coming on. I know that you're an incredible expert when it comes to advertising, more than 20 years experience in this space. And I also know that you have quite an interesting backstory. You met like an old high school friend, and then that somewhat led you to where you are now. Can you tell us your backstory?
Yeah, so going back to the 90s, the blossoming time of home internet. Growing up in high school, I had one of my best friends. Me and him geek out on all things technology as it was coming up, building websites from scratch, sort of like learning HTML as like new things were released for HTML. He actually dropped out of high school. Not that I recommend that, but he dropped out of high school to join a company in Los Angeles, California as a graphic designer. He also had graphic design shops. I never really got into design work, but he was working with this company called Flogo, which was this content network, like greeting cards, silly things like that in the early, late 90s, early 2000s. 3 years later, in 2002, I reconnected with the guy, and he was just on a trip, and we were in the same area. So we went and grabbed lunch, hung out for the day. This was sort of when like cell phones were relatively new, and like, keeping in touch was harder. So I just caught up with him, just like, how's work going and all this stuff. And I still kept really in tune with technology. And I was like, hey, if something ever comes up, and I was living in Oregon, north of California at the time, I was like, hey, if something interesting comes up, like, what I could do, what I've been a part of, like we grew up together, like, let me know. 2 weeks later, he goes,
sorry to cut you off. What were you a part of before that?
So we were just like building websites. We were heavily into gaming, heavily into tech, building websites. It was an accomplishment to know a lot about how to use computer tools back then. So things like Excel and Word back when in the early 2000s, when they were very rudimentary. Knowing how to do, basically being, I would say, highly computer literate for that age, for that time frame. And I just knew about technology. Like I knew how the internet worked when it was like sort of becoming mainstream, when people were just like, I don't know, I dial a phone number and this modem makes noise and I have the internet now. Like, so I understood how this all worked from a technology perspective. So like when I was into stuff, it's just like, we just had this knowledge. We just grew up with it. So then a couple weeks later, he's like, hey, you want to come down here and work for this company, make $32,000 a year, which at the time was amazing. I was an analyst. I was like, sure. What do I do? This is back when I was basically in charge of running invoices and insertion orders around for signatures and everything. Because back in the early days of the internet, advertising was two people on the phone, no video calls because that didn't exist back then. Two people on the phone, hashing out a deal. Someone faxed over an insertion order with the aspects of the deal. At the time, things like targeting were very nascent. So it was like, you're going to get 200 million impressions for this Yahoo homepage over the day. And here's the price. Why you'd sign it, then you'd wire funds, and you'd get on there, and you'd have your day of running products on the internet, right?
How much would that cost?
Probably okay to talk about rates now, but I mean, I remember, so you had three homepages that were sort of the prime real estate: Yahoo homepage, MSN homepage, and AOL homepage. Everyone always wanted AOL. Yahoo. Yahoo was the big one. That would range from $200,000 to $250,000 to take over their page for the day, sometimes more, depending on the holidays. If you were the day before, a few days before Mother's Day or Christmas, rates change seasonally. I remember MSN being about in the $150,000 range, and this was early 2000s prices, and then you'd have AOL in like the $100,000 range, or 80, 50, 75 to 100. Didn't quite get as much traffic. But what you did is back then they had like a 300 by 250 ad unit. That was the primary ad unit on the homepage. And this is where most people ended up when they started on the internet, because you would get around 100, a couple 100 million impressions basically over a day, because anyone who like browsers would just open up and land on MSN. Nobody changed their homepage. So anyone that was on a PC, they would just open up Internet Explorer and just end up on MSN.com. Now, and then there's other placements. So like ad networks worked through ad servers. So you would either rent your own or sort of license your own ad server. You drop an ad code in, and basically publishers would take that code that you give them, drop it on their site, and then they would manually turn things on and off. Or it got more sophisticated. They had scheduling and stuff like that to run your snippet of code. But you had to host your own ad, you had to track it and everything. And those were days in product marketing. We were selling skin products and all sorts of crazy stuff on the internet. I sold Simpsons bottle openers. I've sold little micro RC cards, like you name it. I sold it on the internet pretty much.
How do people actually like follow through the ad back then? You were saying like people use the phone.
Well,
are they clicking to another website?
Yeah, no, you would get the deal done over the phone. Like you would call up a salesperson at MSN and you would say, hey, you got any availability, half day, a full day, what's available. And this is also, so the home pages were always like the prime real estate, but ad sales still worked through a team of people if you wanted to be on the weather page. And like the fun tactics is like no lying here. You would be like, okay, there's severe weather. How much for weather page placement right now?
Whoa.
So like there'd be storms and all this stuff, but those pages would get high impressions, and they would price a premium on there. And if you had good it was a relationship game. Like ad sales back then, this was 2002, 2003, 2004-ish, basically, and all the way up to kind of like 2006, it was relationship. It was salespeople talking to each other. And you had people in your business that would go out and say, okay, these are the CPMs we're going to get. This is how many guaranteed clicks we're going to get, et cetera, et cetera. And you'd sign an insertion order, fax it around, that you give them, you had just basically team members that would go through and deliver the ad code to them. So you generate your own ad code in your own ad server. Here's the code. Here's the creative. It would go live, and you would hope for the best, right? And that's how I got started in this industry, which is sort of like, wow, this is an interesting place to be. Like, so many people here advertising like CPMs. You're talking CPMs are like, oh, it's 50-cent CPMs. Like, man, we'd kill for 50-cent CPMs right now. So that's how I got started. I jumped in, and then from there, I learned about landing page optimization and building out funnels, and just sort of the psychology of like how, like, and this would have been 2003, 2004, literally sort of on the forefront of direct response funnel optimization, and trying to figure out like, what are the best practices? What are button placements looks like? What needs to be, what is the definition of like, what should a hero image have? And what should your headlines and sub headlines be? And testing, because we were selling a lot of subscription products in that time frame.
So this is when you're an analyst, or did you sort of see?
I kind of like
this is interesting?
I mean, it was the Wild West of like the internet. So it was just kind of like, you just kind of I became an analyst.
Do a bit of this, bit of that.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, marketing seems interesting. Okay, let me learn about making web pages, and then learning how to make those web pages. And like, well, like if we change this, I bet we get more people to order. And then all of a sudden, it's now called conversion rate optimization. But back then, it was just like, let's move the button around and see if it works better.
Yeah.
So those same people ended up. So we got bought in 2005 by Fox Interactive Media, because the same company that I was a part of, which ended up being called Intermix Media at the end, owned and built MySpace. So I worked for a product marketing division that was selling consumer packaged goods inside the same company, adjacent to MySpace, which was interesting as a social network, taking off, very popular for a period of time.
Yeah, I definitely had an account.
I mean, you got to have your profile, your song. You got to figure out who's going to be on your top friends. That's how a lot of people learned HTML. It was from MySpace, truthfully. Built on Cold Fusion, a little bit outdated technology originally. So when Fox bought us, they weren't really interested in us selling skin products and wrinkle creams and all that sort of stuff. same group of people started up a new business, and I joined up with them. And we started this company that's grown and grown and grown. And, it's gone through a couple of different iterations, and I grew with that company. So I started as like a marketing manager. I was doing search engine marketing. I was still doing landing page optimization, turned that into analytics because I really just loved the amount of data that you could extract. And we built our own technology. So I worked hand in hand with our development team, largely who's still there at that company, to help build out technology for tracking and for optimization. And, this was back before data warehousing and even Google Analytics was a thing. You just sort of had to build you had your own ad server, you had your own web server, you just had, technologists that would put tracking along the way, and you built your own funnel analysis and all these things.
So what did the tracking look like? Was it kind of like a spreadsheet?
Yeah, pretty much. It was like raw server logs of people that made it to certain stages. You had to kind of have a linear funnel, meaning I would identify hey, here's the homepage, here's the first, here's the product detail page, here's checkout page 1, here's checkout page 2, here's confirmation page. And you would basically, have a senior developer go through, extract server log information that we had stored and say, okay, from this traffic source, here's what we saw come through this page and this page. It's just very raw. And it get output in a SQL query and then dropped in a Excel spreadsheet, right? Very rudimentary stuff. But we turned it into our own console and our technology. So we started getting more sophisticated. And this is 2006, 2007. Not a lot of tools off the shelf could do what we did. And I grew with that company. So I became an analyst. I leveraged analytics to help us raise money and grow. And that same company ended up becoming what's now known as a company called Textile Fashion Group. We got into fashion in 2009, and then they started building brands like Just Fab, Fabletics, which is a major athleisure line and women's fitness wear line, Savage X by Rihanna. All these big brands sort of built off of the same core methodologies with a lot of really smart DR marketers. And I personally grew that company as well, just sort of as a marketing manager, doing Google to analytics to FP&A, financial planning and analysis, and then parlayed that into running our member service operation, grew as a manager and leader. And long story short, I ended up running 2 of the brands there for about 2 years, managing a $300 million a year revenue P&L, about $50 million a year in advertising on TV and all over the internet. And I've been working with those guys for about 14 years, soup to nuts, because the same people I first started with at that previous company. Decided to leave on really great terms, but I'm just hey, I just kind of want to see what else the world has to offer. Landed at an awesome cause-driven company called Thrive Market, online grocery company, membership-based company, really cool product, awesome mission behind it. It came in as our chief marketing officer during a big hyper-growth period there. But I only stayed there for about 1.5 years because ultimately my desire was to be more of an operator of a business, not just a marketer. Not that I'm against marketing, because I've been surrounded by it my whole career, but I spent so much time just operating business. And then landed here at Stealth through a mutual friend, introduced me to the founder here at Stealth, and me and him have been partnered up ever since then. And what Stealth does is we're a marketing agency and an incubator arm that helps build businesses or just spend advertising to the tune of, we spend about $20 to $30 million collectively a month for all of our clients in all sorts of pretty much managed verticals. So everything social, Google, Snap, TikTok, Pinterest, Criteo, Live Intent, anything we can manage behind a screen, we pretty much do it. And that's what we're doing now. And then my job as COO here is just running the ship and building the team, trying to stay ahead of what's always changing in advertising and marketing.
Yep. Yeah. So are you helping businesses with their creatives on those platforms, or are you helping them with the kind of analytics backend attribution stuff?
More so the creative and front-end advertising. So our typical client comes to us. We do creative production. We've started doing creative production, meaning we actually have the means to shoot or direct to shoot our own, raw content, and then we edit it for production. Most of our clients, they have assets and they don't know what to do with it, right? Because having a photo or a video, but then making a finished ad for appropriate for the platform, 2 different things. So our typical client, we do creative post-production, so we can help build ads for the right format for the right advertising. So Facebook ads are different than Insta, even, and Insta, they're all different than Snap and TikTok, etc. And then we do the media buying and optimization into those platforms. So there's significant analytics involved in doing that, of course, because largely media optimization is math tells you and the data tells you where you need to go or where you're at right now. A little harder to get some of that data these days with the changes with Apple, but the fact of the matter is it's a highly data-driven output with creative feeding those machines. And that's what we've been doing and growing really well doing it.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that actually kind of segues into a later question I had. Like, what do you think is going to happen? I kind of feel like we're coming to like a singularity in advertising where like consumers are kind of realizing, oh, this is actually a sponsored post. Big companies are incentivized to protect our privacy. Do you think the consumers are going to wisen up to a point where we can't sell them things?
It's funny. Here's the interesting truth, right? The internet is propped up on advertising. Some people don't want to accept that, but the fact of the matter is the internet at large being individual websites, most of them being free. The reason why they're free is they're propped up in some capacity by advertising dollars, right? Like, Facebook is free because of advertising. That's where they make their money. And the incentivization of people, of companies leaning towards privacy, Facebook doesn't want this. Meta does not want this. TikTok does not want this. Apple made a decision, and Google's making one like kind next year that is to the sake of consumer privacy. What is going to happen, I think, is a lot of the old stuff in advertising will become new again. Meaning, I think I would predict that Meta has to at some point start creating relief in CPMs. CPMs are higher than they've ever been, yet you have less tools at your disposal as a marketer to target people. The beauty of the internet, and look, I don't think it was right. Don't get me wrong with this, but like the peak ability to scale on Facebook was pre-Cambridge Analytica, where people were trading through above the or below the market type actions of like, you could get an email list of 100,000 Facebook accounts and target your stuff to those 100,000 people. Can't do that anymore, right? Cambridge Analytica blew that up. And then sort of the last nail in that coffin was, iOS 14.5, which really put the kibosh on tracking and sophisticated targeting, which is actually fully crippled a lot of small businesses. When I say, and why small businesses? Well, small businesses tend to have a niche audience because, if you're a meal at home company, everyone's got to eat. Okay. You're not as impacted most likely as somebody that's selling bathing suits or they're selling prescription eyeglasses on the internet, because there's kind of a specific targeting you need there. And you need to be able to leverage intent-based marketing or action-based marketing. So things like, oh, I want to go to people that went to this product detail page and track that event and then target them as a lookalike audience for people that made it this far in my purchase process. Because, the beauty of Facebook when it was at its peak as an advertising platform, as an advertiser, look, I'm for privacy. So, but as an advertiser, that data is juicy. The fact that you could sit there and say, I want to get people that look like people that bought my product, or that went to the checkout page, or that went to this page, or did all three of these things, or made added to cart and went to checkout, but they didn't purchase yet. You can combine that and leverage that. And the black box inside of Facebook was able to deliver you to customers at the right price. Like, that was glorious. The fact is, a lot of that's gone now. So where I'm going with that is traditional advertising methods, channel diversification right now, fantastic move. Places like TikTok and Snap do not have the CPMs, but they're sort of bound by the same targeting rules now because Facebook's targeting is much more restricted. You have other opportunities to get on OTT, try to get on, if you have video assets, get on Hulu ads, get on, YouTube more.
What's OTT for us down under?
Over the top.
Over the top. Yeah. I thought you were talking about like a platform.
Yeah. Those like being able to get on all these new advertising channels is kind of a forced factor now. I also think things like direct mail, the least inflated cost of advertising over the past 10 years has its place, and you're able to target still people and addresses, and there's databases there. But I think all businesses now have to shift to you used to be able to build huge businesses on just Meta, or now knows Meta. I'm still going to call it Facebook forever, but like,
please call it Facebook.
Look, I don't like you calling it Meta. Let's just
me neither.
So like, yeah, you used to be able to build gigantic businesses just by being sophisticated at Facebook. Now you need to have a full advertising fingerprint that has you on multiple channels, has you focusing on organic. So creating and cultivating a community and a presence. And also, I think the other thing is you need amazing creative. It is not enough. Like I built a living off of just having an image with a starburst on it that said 25% off this thing. And that would just sell because it would take a designer 15 minutes to make, and we would go and make hundreds of thousands of dollars off of it. Right now, you got to up your game. You have to invest in a creative that's that catches people's eyes, details you as a brand and your product and how it's being used, has social proofing. So influencers as a performance channel, not as much, but influencers as content creators, a gold mine. Who knows better how to make stuff for TikTok than somebody that's got 3 million followers on TikTok and they make awesome content? You pay them to basically shoot your product. I don't care how many orders they're pushing, but now I have a good ad unit native to the platform by somebody who's an expert at it more than me, right? So I think the things that sort of change, like advertising is not going to go anywhere. Brands are going to have the dollars to spend. Direct marketing is a art or is a function older than time, since people have been selling stuff and buy now and we'll also do this, or hey, just go back to pre-electricity. People are selling things and giving deals. So that's not going to change. But what I'm keeping my eye out on is, what does the market do to shift to that? Will Facebook blink, lower ad rates, create more ad units? There's a lot of unknowns with the metaverse and how advertising is going to play into that. That's a ever evolving thing right now. You have the fact that people aren't spending less time on the internet, just advertising's harder right now. So there's going to be more opportunities for us to still find people and advertise to them. And people are going to have to buy stuff in order to keep the internet propped up, right? And prices will give. Like, that'll happen, I think. But I think it's just everyone's got to be able to weather the storm. You have to keep your eyes out for engaging new ways to market and tell your brand story. And then from all of that, grow and adapt your product needs through that, and be ready to try new things, because this sort of setback, if you will, in the ability to advertise to people is without a doubt going to create opportunity somewhere. That's how this always works. So that's how I've seen it work for 20 years. People freaked out when canned spam became a thing. All of a sudden, email wasn't going to work anymore. People freaked out when Adobe Flash was no longer an acceptable ad unit. Everyone had to switch to HTML5 or something similar. That worked itself out. We had a global financial crisis in 2008. People thought you couldn't advertise anywhere. It worked itself out. So it's going to be hard. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not going to say it's quick, but from this setback will come innovation. And I think it's a great opportunity for brands out there to find fun new ways to market their product.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm getting at. Like, you kind of have a meta thing going on where the internet is built on ads, but I think certain people are realizing that, like, you can charge people directly and say, like, we're not gonna give you any ads. It's just, you pay me, I give you the thing you want, bada bing, bada boom. But then if everybody did that and we got rid of all ads, then no one would have any money, because we would just be paying everybody one. Yeah.
Yeah. So as a consumer, would anybody pay per megabyte used over the internet? And would they say, oh, hey, you and I are doing this call right now. We're sending traffic through the internet. Completely, it's going to cost both of us 25 cents or $1 or something like that for us to do this. No, they're not going to do that. The consumer wouldn't do that. My biggest concern, I guess I'd say concern, is what could happen is the monolithic approach of an Amazon and the Alibabas of the world becoming the destination to buy anything, because without your ability to market your own product, everybody knows Amazon. Everybody in other parts of the world knows Alibaba. And all of that just means, like, hey, at a certain point, if I can't buy it on that website because I'm not getting ads and I can't buy direct from a brand anymore, is that just going to create a world where you only buy from those sites? And that kind of happens now. Like, brands that are...
Oh, it's happening now. Yeah.
I mean, brands that are on both, like we deal with this a lot in the service provider and professional services world. We'll get brands that are like trying to do both. They're like, we have
An FBA store.
Yeah, we have
a
this
Shopify store.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, but you realize that if I'm running ads, I'm going to get X number of people that are going to see your ad. A certain percent of them are literally just going to look for your product on Amazon and not buy direct. And you're sending, Amazon's going to take their cut. It's got to be similar price, but you're just advertising for Amazon if you're running on both. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying your direct to consumer advertising will not pencil out. And like almost 100% of the time, when you start with an Amazon store and you're trying to build your own vertical brand because you want the taste of vertical, you want to control your margins, you want to do all that, it is a real challenge. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've seen it fail more often than succeed, because if you're going to buy from Amazon or direct to your .com, people are going to buy from Amazon 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah, 100%.
Because you can't make the prices aren't competitive. People love their Prime. People know that Amazon's got their back. They're like,
guarantees.
So like, why would I go to your website when I could just buy your product from Amazon? So yeah, it's the world we're headed to, but I hope it doesn't get that vertical. But advertising is not going to go away. We'll find new ways to do it.
Yeah. No, I'm sure you're right. Yeah, that's an interesting analogy. It's kind of like I started writing a blog on Medium, and then I learned about SEO. And I was like, I am giving these guys just domain authority, page rank
on topics know about.
Yeah. I'm like, why don't I just put these blogs on my website and help nurture that? But yeah, no, I'm really interested in the whole thing. I think the other thing to think about is like, I'm interested in what you said earlier about Google coming in with its own privacy thing, because there's some companies coming out like Brave, NVIDIA, who are like, we're just gonna circumvent ads on the search engine if you give us a bit of money.
Yep.
When I heard about that, I was like, oh, cool. That'll be interesting. But then I'm like, Google is obviously just so big. They know about this. They're going to just do their own version of it. What do you think is going to happen there?
I don't know. I can't read into the future, but here's my thought is there's one thing, especially here in the US, that I think legislators and the consumer public will get behind is more privacy. As an advertiser, it sucks. As a person, great. Yeah. But like, I always like to say it's a hot pressing issue, and it's only going to get hotter because if people actually knew. I like to imagine anybody, us or even right now, we're leaving an identifiable trail of data. Think of it as you're walking through the future. There is just data flowing behind you at all times. And I don't think the average person realizes how much. You got one of these? Oh boy. There is so much data being printed about you every second of your life. There's a piece of data that will exist right now that says you and I are on this Zoom call. If asked, if Zoom got asked, they could say, oh yeah, this person and this person, they were on this call, right? But then on top of that, my phone knows we were on this call because it's in my calendar, right? My computer knows, Google knows we were on this call because it's in my Google Calendar. My Slack knows that we're on this call because I'm getting a reminder in Slack about this through Google Calendar as a plugin. There's just a stream of data.
You're never going to miss a meeting, are you?
Right? But it's just one thing. So like, think of the stream of data you're leaving if you're just on a video call walking around your house. The things that your phone, I'm not picking on phones, but it's like, that is a portable stream of data that just says, hey, this is where you are, GPS, right? You can triangulate somebody in their house. You can triangulate where they're driving. What stores they went past, what Wi-Fi networks they were a part of, if they got on a plane, all these things, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like, there's going to be a push for privacy. And as people really realize like how much information about them is being stored, now, not all of it's actionable, but it exists. Push comes to shove, it is very hard to hide from your digital footprint. So what that's going to mean is consumers are going to love privacy. You're going to start seeing things where these pay for no ads type worlds will start doing integrated placements, right? You'll start seeing, it's not an ad, but here's an article going back to the advertorial model. Here's an article that maybe has a little bit of a bias towards a specific product or drives interest towards a product, right? You're going to start seeing videos. I think this is one thing that is an opportunity. It's hard as a direct marketer to say this because direct marketing to me means I have attribution. I have data that sort of says, here's your impression and here's your order. And I see everything in between. You're going to start seeing product placement. Like, there's a world where and some podcasts do this, but there's worlds where you as the host might have just a Coke bottle in the background, or
yeah.
Just like the subtleties of that. So like, Coke might pay you like, hey, like every podcast, you keep a Coke bottle in the background there, will pay you $50, right? Like you're going to start seeing more of that if people start circumventing it. But that model of like pay to be involved is going to also wreck consumers, because they're not going to want to do things like, oh yeah, YouTube is no longer free for everybody, but we're going to just charge you 2 cents every 10 minutes to watch it, right? Or something like that. It seems reasonable. That maybe that bills through your ISP, right? But then, and all this, but then all of a sudden people are going to be like, wow, like, holy moly, I'm just racking it up really quickly.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a world where the internet still stays propped up by advertising and publishers are able to do that. It will just change to being brands that can really mass market and I think you're going to need a little bit more runway and revenue. It's going to be harder for new brands to get into market 100%. The advertising is not going to go away. It's just going to become better, but less targeted. The rub, this is like look, I'm a biased advertiser. I can't say I'm not, but here's the deal. When people were giving away more of their privacy and when all these things existed, it's invasive, but it did allow advertisers like myself and others to serve you the best ads that were most relevant to you. And that's now not as possible anymore. This is where we're at right now. We're at the point where people are getting ads that they hate even more, because the personalization, the ability for us to target you correctly is now gone, right? I get ads all the time, even on Facebook, for products that I have zero relevance in. And you can imagine as an advertiser too, like with how many brands we work on, my data profile on Facebook of like what ads to serve this guy is insane, because I've clicked on so many different ads in my life. But now it's getting obnoxious where I'm like, that's like, why am I serving this? Because there's just, people are having to shoot in the dark. So that's the part that I think is unfortunate. But I understand. The human in me totally gets it. Like, I don't like that much data being out there, but at the same time, it did make the internet a lot more palatable. And with that, you're going to have just like people hating the ads that they're getting even more, which sort of sucks.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I agree with you, but I just also hold like a utopian kind of thing where it all just works out. But
I mean, that'd be really great.
Yeah.
Like, and people like consumers are like the pandemic and everything that came from that. One thing that it did do is that it created 10 years of adoption of internet ordering, meaning that people that used to order on the internet 4 or 5 times a year are now ordering 2 to 3 times a month. It created an adoption and a convenience and a new and e-commerce as a channel is so much more acceptable. People aren't worried about putting their stuff on the internet anymore. Like that there was a time period there where people were like, sorry, this is just reminded me of like 10 or 12 years ago, maybe at this point, talking to like my in-laws and stuff and, the older generation, and then being like, I'm just really scared to put my credit card on the internet because it's going to get stolen. Like that doesn't happen anymore. Like it doesn't. Like I'm sure there's shady sites where you can lose it, but honestly, like the tokenization, and people don't understand that. They're like, when you put a credit card in a field now, you're buying from Shopify or something. Nobody has access to what that number is. It gets tokenized and hashed and rehashed and like in a way that nobody's ever going to solve it. It exists only in what you see, and then it's gone basically and saved as a token. But like, there are people like no one's really scared of that anymore. No one's scared about punching in their credit card on the internet. I think one thing that's interesting to me is, mobile devices being the primary way people use the internet these days. I am I don't know how this is going to play into advertising, but the lowered friction on ordering through things like Apple Pay, as somebody
dude.
It makes it so much easier. It's like, literally, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to buy this. Here's my face. Tap, tap. We good. And it fills your, like, so that's pretty cool. And when you get somebody with that intent to be able to buy, it's now so much more frictionless instead of like sitting there and being like, I got to punch in my first name and then I got to tap on the next one because you can't just tap. Like now it's like so seamless. They have your address stored in there. All that's really good. But now you just got to find the customer when they want your product and find a way to get it in front of them. That's the challenge right now. Yeah,
I bought an ice cream yesterday and I got the lovely little ding when I pay waved it. And
Yep.
and then a couple of hours later, I exported the final draft of a short film I've been working on for like a year. And there was silence, and I was like, oh, I just kind of wish there was a little,
I need a little haptic feedback right there.
Yeah. It'd be nice. So that's all well and scary, but we should pivot to subscriptions, because I know you're a complete expert in that. So I want to ask, I actually run more services than products, make people films. Are there any different variables, or are they kind of aligned when you have a subscription service versus a product?
Yeah, subscription services and recurring revenue models, which is really the better way I think about it, because there's nuance there. I like to tell people, and I've said this now on a few podcasts, so it's not new. It's about creating a relationship between you and the consumer. If you're a subscription or recurring revenue model of some kind, it's not enough to just be stuff in a box. It's not enough to just like exist. You got to create and nurture a relationship with your customer. And that takes work. It's like any other relationship in one's life. It takes work, and that work comes in the form of really great communication. A lot of parallels to how people interact personally. Like a subscription or recurring revenue company is now, in essence, a utility to them. It's a bill that they get every month or quarter or whatever they're on. So with that comes expectations. Part of those expectations are quality service. It comes with a quality product when you need it, and not more than you need and not less than you need. It's like just the right amount. It also comes with, needing to solve a pain for that consumer. So one of the easiest examples I give, and we work with a lot of meal at home companies, but look, everyone's got to eat. And getting food delivered to your front door that's ready to prepare, or pop it in the microwave and you're ready to eat, does a few things. One, it's not just convenient. It's not just a feature, is that food shows up at your door. That's awesome.
But someone's already prepared it as well, so it's going to be like healthy, and there's going to be
it's got the right macros you're looking for. It's got the right nutrition profile you're looking for. But you know what else it does? Saves you time from going to the grocery store, time that you could spend with your family, your friends, or just not at the grocery store. It could be less expensive, so it saves you money that you could spend doing something else. Gives you peace of mind if you have dietary concerns, as in you maybe either trying to lose weight, or you have gluten problems, all these sorts of things. This food's coming to you. It's going to be good. It's going to be tasty. It's going to also be good for you in that case. So it relieves a huge stressor, because everyone's got to eat. Now, part of that problem is being taken care of for you. When you have a product that can do that, and that's like an extreme case, because eating is a necessity. But say you're a fashion company, people want to keep their wardrobe and their self-image up to date, right? So you work with a fashion subscription company that keeps your wardrobe modern. It keeps it to your style, footwear, outerwear, whatever you're into. And if you're somebody that cares about that, now you're not, and you have trust with a brand that vibes with your style. Now all of a sudden you're able to reduce the pain of going to a store or just buying something online and be like, I don't know if that's going to work. Maybe this will work. Maybe it's not. Like, now you got a subscription that's bringing you fashion and solving part of your inner turmoil of your overall image, right? Like your own personal image, which is important to everybody to have a sense of that and style. So that's what subscriptions have to do. It's not just, hey, here's stuff, we're throwing it in a box for you. They can't do that. E-commerce can do that. E-commerce and advertising is a very different beast between both of those as well. Subscription, you're buying and acquiring customers mathematically to their lifetime value, which you can predict. It's a very predictable number, usually pretty consistent. With e-commerce, you got to have a ROAS, that sort of return on ad spend, that presents itself immediately. You might be able to buy a customer that's spending $400 with you for $100 and get that 4-to-1 ROAS right now. But that same $100, you could get a customer that is going to have an $800 LTV, right? Or you could pay $200 to get that $800 LTV customer and actually make more money with them. So
how are you predicting that LTV?
So predicting LTV, it's just a couple of numbers on the most basic level. You know your revenue that you're getting on a per transaction basis. You need to know your churn, or take a guess at your churn, and understanding cohort. So cohort in this case, typically new customers in a period, in a month, right? So April 2022. This is how many new customers we got. It's a fixed number, doesn't really change. You're not going to go back historically and update that. And then you look at their churn over time. So much like a recency frequency model that exists with e-commerce, where you're saying, hey, they're going to purchase, average customer purchases 2.5 to 3 times a year every 90 days. And once they're 180 days out or something, they drop off. It's kind of the same thing where you're like, but the thing is, you're like, okay, we started with 100 customers. Next month, we're going to have 80. Next month after that, we're going to have 60. Next month after that, it starts dropping 5% per month or whatever. And there's sort of, I would say I have a feel for it from an industry perspective, but it makes logical sense. Your biggest churn is in your first payment or after your first payment, between that and the second payment. Then it starts going down really aggressively from there. So it's usually around 20%, 10-ish%. Then, somewhere between 7 and 5% in perpetuity until, the cohort runs dry. But subscriptions give you typically a higher customer LTV. They give you predictability with your business, meaning how much product you're going to need in the upcoming months. So your supply chain and, the ability to model your business makes a lot of sense. And if you just look, you have to take a guess and then chew it up over time. Like you don't know until you know, but you can be conservative. When I say that is like really aggressive with like your churn rates. And if they come in under, great, you adjust, right? But you need churn, you need revenue based on whenever you're getting it, if it's monthly, quarterly, semi-annually or annually, right? Whatever you're doing. And you just model all that out and you can come to an LTV. One hidden piece, I would say, or one important piece, which this is like an important piece for any type of business, is having good margins. If you're an advertising company, as in scratch that, if you're a company that acquires customers through advertising, you need to have a certain amount of margin for advertising. Meaning, if you're a product that operates on 20% margins delivery to the customer from there, not including media and team and salaries and all that, but just to the customer, you're not leaving a lot of room to acquire customers, right? We say 50% about the bare minimum for you to be able to do that. 50% gross margin to the customer. So if a customer buys a product for $100, your cost of goods plus shipping needs to be $50 or less to get that to that customer's door. And then you start chipping away at, your the rest of your economics, your customer acquisition costs, your team from there. So you can come up with an LTV. It's relatively, you're talking about addition, subtraction, and multiplication division here. It's not hard calculus.
I just thought that you were like predicting LTV or from an individual, not from like prior customers.
Predicting LTV is basically just creating a pro forma model that looks at your business, and then you come up with an LTV. There's easy math with this too. Honestly, if you're a subscription brand of about, $50 to $100 per order, use 4.5 orders a year as a basic litmus. That's your LTV. And I will say plus or minus 10%, that's about right. So if you don't even want to go through all that, if your AOV is $50, assume about a $200 to $250 LTV. Like start there. Now you true it up with actuals over time, but like 4.5 orders in that first year of of that customer's life cycle, pretty much where you're going to sit with subscriptions. Some better, some worse, but that's a conservative number, I'd say.
Okay, so it's about keeping in touch with people. It's about good ads. It's about being thinking outside of the box. Well, I actually wanted to ask you this earlier. Can you run me through like subscription advertising history 101? Because I know that you were like at the intermediate company that became MySpace.
So back a long time ago, things like terms and conditions were suspect at best. So subscriptions started off go pre-internet. There have been subscriptions over time, music clubs, things like that have existed that have had a very confusing subscription economy. The internet and stuff that I did early on the internet, terms and conditions, legislation around that didn't really exist. So we didn't say that there wasn't a subscription, but you would have, this is a totally free trial. And then after 14 days, we're going to bill you this big price. And there's no refunds, no returns, no anything, right? That's how it was in the early 2000s. And, a little dicey. And then over time, it took a decade or more to really get there. Subscription has turned into something that people are, one, aware of, and two, they don't shy away from anymore. And I can distinctly remember in like the mid 2000s, there was a absolute disdain for the subscription economy from the consumer level. Like because of maybe things that I was a part of, maybe not, but a lot of really shitty, subscriptions out there that screwed people over. Like they really did. And you couldn't cancel. You'd be on a subscription for 10 months. The customer service wouldn't work. No one would ever answer an email. And like you had to take it up with your bank. And that was like, there was a lot of horrible, I wasn't part of ones that bad, but there were a lot of them that were that bad. Now over time, because of subscription promise and because more recurring revenue models exist, it's all a vast majority of subscriptions, not just because of the laws that exist, but just because in order to be competitive, people are looking out for themselves. And when they're jumping into a subscription, there's a couple things you got to have. One, you got to have terms that are easy to deal with. You can't have a confusing subscription that makes people wonder when I'm going to get billed, how I'm going to get billed, how much I'm going to get billed. So transparency is key. Obviously, good customer service and resolution, right? Like I preach now after everything. It's like, if a customer wants to leave, you let them leave and you give them the best offboarding experience possible, because there was a time where you had to make canceling really hard because you try to keep every customer you could get. But now a frictionless canceling is actually offboarding a customer. Thing. Yeah. And they're going to talk about you and say, yeah, but it was easy to cancel. I like the product, but it was easy to cancel. That's most people that want to cancel you, by the way. They're like, product was good. I got too much of it. It was really easy to cancel. Not a big deal. You should try it, buddy. Like, good. That's instead of like
positive cycle.
Instead of like, yeah, you want me to tell you about this brand? I bought it. I tried to cancel for 3 months. I sent something to the BBB. I blasted them on Facebook and Google reviews. And, I wrote a letter to the president of the company and talked to their entire, like all this stuff. And then I finally got half my refund, and I hate that company. Right. So subscription has become over time, not just an acceptable thing, but a reasonable thing that people will do as long as it meets those needs. It's got to be something that removes the pain. It's got to be convenient. It's got to be the right price point, have a unique value proposition. All these things that is a subscription promise holistically are commonplace now. And those best subscriptions have it. And they provide a consistent value for what you pay for. That's really what it is. Like people have to pay their power bill. They have to pay their phone bill. But I think most people, you don't hear people really complaining too much these days about the price of their cell phone bill because of the utility it brings. The same thing goes with a subscription good. If it's not something people need in their life, they got to be like, this is a great product and it's definitely worth the price, right? And I'm definitely getting the value for that. But it has changed a lot and been adopted a lot more. And candidly, investors and people that are going to put money into your business, they love recurring revenue. Just because it's predictable, you can see it. It's a calculator that looks into the future. Forward-looking revenue becomes less of a mystery. When you're an e-commerce store, if you've ever been a part of those or seen those, it's like we had our biggest month, followed by we had our worst month, followed by a new record, followed by I think we're out of business. Like subscription smooths that out, and then the outside of the promise, outside of all that, the basics with subscription and recurring revenue models kind of comes down to this. If you got a product or a service that people would like in their lives, it's not for everybody, but they're going to love it. And they're going to stay with it. And you're going to have an awesome customer that'll bring you a high LTV, where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was shady and weird. And subscriptions had a bad rap because 80% of the people out there were bad actors in that space. Now, I would say it's the opposite. There's still some scams out there. Don't get me wrong. I would never say there's not one, but you're not going to get scammed if you're buying on a store on Shopify, really on a subscription. And if you do, you're going to figure it out quickly, and they're going to solve it for you. Your ability to do research on a company now, so much easier. Looking at how legit a company is. It's not just like, oh, where's this company? They started 2 weeks ago and they have 5,000 customer reviews and they all say the same thing. Yeah, maybe this is a little shady. That doesn't really happen these days either. So it's changed a lot. It's a lot more acceptable. It's not for everybody though, but I would say it's not filled with as much vitriol and hatred as it used to be, if I'm being honest, because
the utopia is coming.
It's getting there, right? I think the demystification, honestly, I think a lot of the credit of that goes to also like streaming services, some of the biggest subscriptions in the world, Spotify, Amazon Prime, all these things, Netflix, all these companies have now said, okay, things can be on subscription, and they have good ones. Like, I mean, value is everyone's opinion, but you need to cancel your Amazon, you need to cancel Spotify. It's easy to do that, right? Like,
yeah, 100%.
So people are used to it now. People find room for it, and they don't hate it as much.
Yeah, thanks. You're such a wealth of knowledge. It's incredible.
I could talk.
Yeah.
I could talk.
Yeah. Thank you. So I know we're probably nearing the end of the hour, but I got one more kind of question.
Ooh, I love it.
So I heard you talking on another podcast about if you're a subscription service, it's a really good thing to showcase that you have a social cause. And I debate this. I have a little philosophy club with my friends, and we kind of debated this once of like, you can have one beer that's just a beer, and you can have another beer that's like, we actually donate to an elephant sanctuary. And we were kind of undecided on like, is that the responsibility of the customer to help the elephants, or, it's just such a macro problem, like, climate change, take any macro problem. What do you think about that? Do you think every company should be regulated and say, well, we should all give socially, or should it be somewhere in the middle? Or
so my opinion on this is, if you can, you should. And that's like sort of a personal cause-driven mindset of just like, I think that a business, a for-profit enterprise, can find ways to help people, not just, or help people through its commerce. Now, is it what is necessary? I don't know about that. I'm very passionate about it, though, and it's got to also be authentic to what you do. So there's like things that fit. So like your example, a beer that is donating to an elephant sanctuary feels a little weird, right? But if a beer is donating to a healthy hop supply chain, I'm making something up right there, but
sustainability in the rainforests,
sure,
connected.
It's a little bit more connected, right? When I was at Thrive, one thing that we did, the whole purpose of that company, a big part of its cause was to solve what in the States is sort of referred to as food deserts, where people that have dietary restrictions or gluten. Gluten is a big one, right? They live in
those food deserts.
Yeah, well, yeah. So like,
I've been to the east.
Yeah, you right. There you go.
Crazy.
So like,
supermarkets have just sugar bread and no fruit and vegetables.
Correct. You can't get anything that suits your dietary needs. We help deliver that right to the doorstep at Thrive. And that was a purpose of the company. But the social cause behind it is the prices on Thrive for comparable products regularly beat Amazon. That was a big thing. Like on a per SKU basis, once you're a member, you paid $60 a year to be a member, like Costco or something like that. But what we did is every time we got a member, we donated a membership for free to a low-income family. So now the low-income family is able to buy through us things that they need dietary-wise, organic, gluten-free foods, etc., at prices cheaper than they could buy them in any grocery store. So even if they're not in a food desert, say they're in Los Angeles, California, but they can't afford to go to Whole Foods and other grocery stores where organics are more expensive than comparable products, we flip that. So that was a cause that we had, and it served perfectly. Every membership we gave away another one. So having a social cause, especially to a younger consumer here, meaning like the people that are just that the new 25 to 35 or 25 to 34 rung, having something that makes sense for you to stand by and showing that part of the dollars we collect as a company are making a positive impact is important. Is it absolutely required? No, obviously not. Get 100 businesses together. Maybe I'd be stoked if 25% of them had a cause that they were truly passionate about. But that is only something that helps. Like, like any company could probably find half a point of its bottom line to give away to something to make the world a better place. And that's going to gain you more customers than it's going to lose you. So why not? And it's not just about getting more customers, but it's also just like, it's a good thing to do. As I think about it, it's just a good thing to do. It's money that's not missed, but can make a difference. And like one thing that we do at Stealth, as we live this example, it's easy for me to say, all you brands do it. So this is like a shameless plug of something we're doing at Stealth. So this part is like, we have a part of our business called the Impact Lab. And what we do is we actually created a product that is teaches people how to make a Shopify store, how to run their ads, how to get assets made, and how to build a business. And we're actually having young entrepreneurs, like inner city kids, go through this program, learn how to bring a product to market, and we actually donate them hard cash at the end, like $5,000 to $10,000 in cash to spend on advertising.
Wow.
And to take their product and to make their dream a reality. Like they work on getting their product in the house. And we have, like, there was one of our, spoiling something, but one of our kids in this, they're creating a product that is, I don't want to spoil it too much because it's going to launch soon, but basically, long story short, it meant a lot to him as a kid that spent a lot of time in hospitals growing up to create something that helps those kids. So we're launching a product that helps kids that are spending a lot of their life in the hospital. Like, to me, that's just amazing. And this kid doesn't come from a wealthy family that can just throw a bunch of money at this. Like, he's bootstrapping this himself. He's working, he's doing all this stuff. He's coming to us, and he didn't know how to do any of this. And like, you're going to bring that to market. So this is like a social cause we believe in, and that money comes out of our pockets. Like, we built this ourselves.
Nice. We're
donating it. And like we're a marketing agency, right? Like, we're a service provider to brands. We spend their money and make them more. But what we see as important is, how do we make the next entrepreneurs? How do we create entrepreneurialism among kids that many of them have the least hope possible? So this is a cause that we created, right? So like, a company can do that, and a company you'll find from like an internal culture perspective at a company. If you're a big company, you got hundreds of people employed there. Let the most passionate of them go out and make an impact. Donate company money to go out and say, hey, like, we're going to go sponsor a food kitchen for a week. And you'll have passionate team members that'll be appreciative for us doing that. They'll execute it. And like, it doesn't have to be something that you write a huge part about on the website, but just like, that's a newsletter piece. That's some good local PR. That's just a good thing to do. So like, find a little bit of scratch, and you'd be surprised on how, when you're a company making millions of dollars a month and all this stuff, like, what just a couple $1,000s a year can make an impact to certain families that are concerned about putting food on their table. And you could solve some of that. All that adds up, and it's just a good thing to do. So that's my take.
No, yeah, I agree. I'll say, I really do. I like your phrase, like, it's not bringing any harm. It's not a bad thing to do. It's just a good thing to do. The counter that we came up with in Philosophy Club was like, you can create a dependency. So like, I have a pretty crack up example here. Like, I made a video for the chief medical officer for the state of New York, and he invited me for lunch in the Empire State Building. And the morning that I had the lunch with him, I went to the Hare Krishna food bank, and I helped them, feed the homeless. And then I told Lloyd that afternoon, I was like, this kind of cool thing I did this morning. And he was like, oh, because he's running the city on such a high level. He's like, those guys are keeping people on the streets. They're not helping the homeless, because a homeless person goes to the food bank and they leave with a nice warm meal. And they're like, sweet, I'm prepared to face this, this position I'm in. Whereas Lloyd was like, we need to give those people the power to look after themselves. So it's a real tricky one. I'm so on board with what you're saying, and I want to do that too. But I guess it's case by case. But I'm really, I didn't expect you to say that we're given. How do you do the metric on that? Like, are they just coming to you going, we've kind of got an idea, or we've got a few sales?
So we interview these kids, and they have ideas, and they talk us through their pitch, and we help them through that pitch, and ask them why they want to do it, teach them how to create models and understand business economics, like what they should be selling it for, how to establish a supply chain, do all these things. And at the end, we give them a grant to go out and spend advertising, start driving their customers, right? So it's interesting. So your point about the dependency point is certainly a highly debatable topic that we could do on another podcast. But there's different aspects of that. So when you're talking about basic human needs, like being able to eat and stuff like that, there's a certain, certainly a debate on, like, and I can speak for myself as a kid growing up homeless at times, when you get that one warm meal, you're not feeling super content. You're worried about your next warm meal. But the other side of that is, where we could create opportunity and actually create optimism in a world that can suppress and otherwise hold down certain types of people or that aren't presented with the same opportunities. Like that's one thing that we're looking to try to change. And that's why like these young entrepreneurs, they're not coming from rich families that, kid graduates college, he gets $200,000 grants, doesn't have to worry about paying back college loans, and they have a huge leg ahead. What we're trying to do is just trying to help them kickstart and recognize that like you're not going to build a business off of grants and donations forever, but at the same time, it takes money to build a business. So creating enterprise and creating like hopefully the jobs that then they create after that, like that's an awesome outcome. If we could get one of these entrepreneurs to actually have a business that sticks, and then they hire 10 people, and maybe they're looking at their past and be like, I'm going to give opportunities to 10 people that otherwise wouldn't have it because I didn't have it. Like that's the ripple effect we're hoping to create. That's not a dependency in our opinion. That's just like creating opportunity through social enterprise.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't say that your case is a dependency. It was more the food bank thing. But,
yeah. So like
what you're doing there is pretty admirable.
And so like, then you start looking at like, things like Heal the Bay, there's just trash on the beach. That doesn't need to end up in our oceans. And like filling up 20 or 100 trash bags makes a minuscule impact, but it does make a positive impact. It makes the beach a better place. And that's not, the beach isn't dependent on it. Like a lot of social enterprise is cleaning up after ourselves collectively. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like,
yeah. Oh, definitely. That's kind of another interesting point is like, why is there plastic on the beach?
Right. Totally.
Like,
right.
We should just ban that.
Yeah. Why is there that stupid, I don't remember what it's called, but like literal like island of trash in the middle of the Pacific Ocean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just north of here, actually.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Right. It's like the size of Texas. Like that's cool. Like that sounds like a really fun thing to have out there. So, to me, it's just like the social enterprise and having an impact. There's various degrees of that, but I look at it as if you're a company that like, if you're a small company, yeah, it's a little harder to have that. But one last thing we do here at Stealth that I'm going to plug that sort of shows how social impact can happen. We give all of our team members here a day off a month if they want to just participate in their community and just share what they did. So some people go to the the animal shelters and take care of the pets for the day. Some people mentor kids or, volunteer at their kids' school. And like, we just want like, that's a great way for a company to have a social impact, is just to say, hey, we also let our team take 12 days off a year, 1 day off a month to just do something in their own community and have a community impact. And whatever that is, it could be serving at a soup kitchen. It could be taking care of animals. It could be cleaning up trash. Like all that, like that's a great way for a business to create a social impact that's not even huge. And they probably don't miss it. Right. Like one extra day off is like a sick day,
Yeah.
So that's what we try to encourage. And like, again, they don't always have to be public, but being able to talk about that, you talk about getting quality candidates, talk about getting quality people that work there that will then we could get really deep into like, not just what you put out as a brand, but what you have going on inside. A company is a company, and capitalism is a thing, and for-profit enterprise is what all these companies are. But then you start attracting people that love the passion that you have as a company. And most brands have many brands, I should say, have social causes that aren't even on their website, right? They just believe in it.
I am strongly into that. Yeah, anyway, I think that's kind of the nug.
Cool stuff. we should have gotten into the philosophy earlier.
Yeah. So you guys need a podcast host or a filmmaker?
Yeah, all the time. There we go.
Yeah.
I'll send you a water bottle. I'll get you one of these,
Yeah.
Squared away.
No, that's really good to hear. I think that's beautiful. Yeah, thanks for sharing those points. I also want to just keep going, but I'm wary of the time.
It's all good, man. This is a great conversation. I appreciate it. And wrapping up, thanks a lot for having me. Anytime you have me back, we can go deeper into this and all sorts of fun changes in advertising.
Yeah, let's hit it running next time at the beginning.
Awesome.
Where can people reach you, Evan? And yeah, thanks so much. That was an awesome conversation. Really was.
Awesome. So stealthventurelabs.com, our website, we got a form there. It doesn't all go to me. You can reach me at Evan, EVAN at stealthventurelabs.com. Find me on LinkedIn. Always love talking about the industry and anything going on, anything interesting from this. Just connecting with people is always fun. So anyone in Northern Colorado, if that were to happen, hit me up. I'm in Fort Collins, Colorado. Grab a beer and talk more about social enterprise.
Oh, I'm going to be in Massachusetts in 4 weeks, but
it's a little far. It's a bit of a haul, but
bit of a drive. Awesome. Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to get your email, it'll be in the show notes. And yeah, just honestly, thanks so much, Evan. I think my boss is going to kill me for tracking 5 hours to prepare for this. I didn't need to. that was a complete breeze.
Awesome. Well, it was a good time, man. I love talking about this stuff. And thanks again for having me.
Hey, no worries. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Debutify Podcast. If you want to be part of the show, just email us podcast@debutify.com or head over to debutify.com to learn more. Have a great day and good luck with everything.